Welcome back to WTOL 11 Your Day. Saturday is a day many fans of a particular singer will be celebrating. January 8th is Elvis Presley's 87th birthday. With us this morning, author Sally Hoedel, who interviewed hundreds of people who knew the King personally. She discovered what he was really like outside the spotlight and why he was destined to die young. Sally, that's the name of your book. Tell us why you were inspired to write it.
Absolutely. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong Elvis fan and also a journalist, so this was certainly a coming together, a personal and professional endeavor. But I found a layer of Elvis's story that I think is really important, and it's so important for his legacy. As you said, his birthday, celebration is coming up, and he's still known around the world by his first name and his image alone. And his contribution to our culture is so important. So the better we can understand the man, the more we can understand his story and his legacy, and just look at that from a historical viewpoint, which I think is really important. So this layer of truth, that I uncovered was it was a incredible project from start to finish.
A lot of people have some ideas about, who they thought Elvis was and, why he died and all of those things. But you uncovered some facts. And in the first one, most people believe that Elvis's bad health was because of his lifestyle, drinking, drugs, that sort of thing. But you found something else out about him.
Absolutely. This book and this research really was kind of a reversal of his family tree. And what we now know is that his maternal grandparents were first cousins. So it leads to a lot of disease and disorder in his family. He dies at age 42. His mother dies at 46. Very similar degenerative pattern of health. And we also know that 3 of his uncles, her brothers, die in their 40s as well. And when you start to see this through the family tree, it starts to be more than just a coincidence. And it certainly is a factor in Elvis's death. And yes, he his lifestyle was a very difficult one. But looking at him through that narrow lens of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, it is very limiting, and it's not enough because his story is much bigger. And he was a very ill man. And what started out as self-medicating and trying to find a way to continue being Elvis Presley, did become a problem for him. But it's the understanding of why did Elvis turn to the prescription medication in the first place, which is such a big question from a journalistic standpoint.
Yeah, there's some underlying things people probably didn't know about him there. And a lot of people, as you mentioned, lifestyle and things like that, but people felt like, he was viewed as one of self-destruction, like it was like a purposeful thing, that he was doing to himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's how pop culture views him. I think that's how he's remembered in a lot of ways, as a story of self-destruction. And I really do see Elvis as a story of survival. And it was a futile attempt to survive, first through extreme poverty, and then through this extreme level of fame that no one had really experienced before Elvis, and then through all of these health ailments. And it is a constant struggle, and he's constantly, trying to find a way first to provide for his family and pull them out of poverty, and then keep them there, and then to survive that fame, and then through all these health ailments, which made it really very difficult to be Elvis Presley.
Absolutely. I can't even imagine. He got this title, the King, and with that, I think a lot of people thought, well, he was a glutton, but you found that to be the opposite.
Very much so. Elvis's generosity is unmatched. They say he gave away over 200 cars in his lifetime, jewelry, money. He was always helping people, and it started with his own family. He really didn't set out to be the most famous person to ever live. He set out to be a provider for his family and pull them out of poverty, and he does that, and not just for his mom and dad. He employs cousins and aunts and uncles, and his grandmother. He lives at Graceland. So many of his family members live there because he really did see himself as a provider first and foremost.
A lot of people, of course, talk about his death and how he died, many saying that he died from a drug overdose, but you found something else about his death.
Absolutely. It was a cardiac event. It was not a drug overdose. That would have been a slow coma type death that would have taken time, and he died very quickly. It is related to the heart and liver issue that we know he suffered from, and it was genetic disorder. So by the time he passes in 1977, Elvis Presley has disease or disorder in 9 of the 11 systems of the body. So he was a very ill man. And again, a lot of that has always been written off as the end result of the prescription medication. But what my research shows that there is evidence of at least 5 of those being present prior to fame, most likely since birth, most likely genetic in nature. So again, when his mother dies at a similar age and similar way, and 3 of his uncles, they didn't take the same prescription medication, they didn't live the rock and roll lifestyle. There is absolutely so much more going on with Elvis and with why he died and how we can understand that. And that's certainly what the book does. It talks about that, but it also talks about how he had to live with all these things and how he, they play a major part in his story too.
How can people get a hold of your book? Obviously Elvis is someone who is cherished, and a lot of people will be so interested to learn more. Where can they find it?
Absolutely. You can start at my website, elvisauthor.com, because it talks about the research and it talks about all the people I was able to, meet and discuss this with the research and whatnot. And then it's also on Amazon.
Easy to find there. Sally, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Interesting stuff.